Hello and welcome. This is Amhara Media Corporation English Service and you're watching our daily updates. I'm Gaila Damu. Stay with us. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed wrote on his Facebook page that Ethiopia has a firm belief that the proud Sudanese people have enough wisdom and ability to overcome the problems they are facing. Yayu Mallasep reports.
The Premier said, "It is well known that the brotherly Sudanese people throughout their ancient history are a proud people who love their independence, adhere to their freedom, and that they never negotiate over their national pride and dignity." He mentioned the fraternity and social cohesion that the Sudanese people share with the Ethiopian people, among others, abundant generosity and good hospitality. The Sudanese people have enough wisdom and ability to solve the current crisis facing the country. The Premier noted, stating that outside forces should refrain from interfering in the affairs of the Sudanese people. Abiy added that any hidden attempts and motives to destroy the country's capabilities will inevitably be condemned in the course of history. Prime Minister Abiy affirmed the desire of the Ethiopian government and people is to see that the Sudanese people solve their own problems with the wisdom they are accustomed to. He reaffirmed once again, saying, "We are always with the public interest of Sudan and its people, and strongly condemn all attempts that seek to interfere in Sudanese affairs through illegal means, which will be condemned before history."
Ministry of Transport and Logistics and Trademark Africa signed a memorandum of understanding for the implementation of electronic fleet management system. Ababa Burhani tells us more.
The Ministry of Transport and Logistics and Trademark Africa have signed Memorandum of Understanding to modernize Ethiopia's fleet management and facilitate import and export trade. The agreement was signed by Minister of Transport and Logistics Dr. Alamusime and Ethiopian Director in Trademark Africa Unetu Taye. In accordance with the Memorandum of Understanding, it is stated that Trademark Africa will apply software application that enables them to give an integrated, efficient and time-saving service. Transport and Logistics Minister Dr. Alamusime said on the signing agreement that the agreement is significant for modernizing all the systems in the logistics sector, explaining that the agreement is important for the presence of fair price for products and services. Dr. Alamus stated that it facilitates the logistics system exists between Ethiopia and other countries, adding that the Memorandum of Understanding aims at making service-providing fleets be able to give integrated, efficient and cost and time-saving service. Dr. Alamu also stated that Ministry of Transport and Logistics is committed to get into the implementation process of the agreement.
የዛሬው የፊርማ ስነ ስርዓት ከትሬድማርክ አፍሪካ ጋር ያደረግነው ይሄንኑ ዓላማችንን ለማሳካት የሚያግዝ ነው።
The agreement we signed today with Trademark Africa aimed at integrating, accelerating and specializing our fleet management. It also enables us to control activities at any time wherever we are being at a centralized control. The system will integrate countries where our fleet connects with. This is a great move to ensure competitiveness of the sector and to modernize the system.
ትልቅ ፕሮጀክት ነው ስርዓቱን ከማዘመን እና ከማቀናጀት አንፃር ማለት ነው።
Ethiopian Director in Trademark Africa, Unetu Taye, on his part said that, based on the agreement, his institution will apply the software application development activity and provide service within a year. He added that when the software application development activity is completed and deployed, It will enable Ethiopia to properly register, manage and administer its fleet resource in a centralized and efficient way.
ዋነኛ ግቡ ያለንን ሀብት የተሽከርካሪ ሀብት በአግባቡ ማስተዳደር ፕላን ማድረግና ለምናደርግ የሎጂስቲክስ መሳለጥ በአግባቡ መጠቀምን
The main aim is to administer, plan and integrating our fleet system. It is implemented in 2 phases. The key activities in this project are development of software for fleet management, hosting options, deploying the software and designing and establishing control center. Using this system, we can monitor our fleet at a real time. We believe one of the center will be established at Ministry of Transport and Logistics. Likewise, there will be some other spots as well as to control our fleet.
እንዳስፈላጊነቱ ሌሎች ኮንትሮል ሴንተሮችን አድርገን የምንቆጣጠርበት ስርዓት ነው።
East African Universities Common Council announced that it is working to create competent and skilled professionals through East Africa Skills for Transformation and Regional Integration projects. Brown Workana tells us more.
The project is evaluating performance of Ethiopia, Kenya and Tanzania. It is noted that the project is working planning to produce competent citizens in technical and vocational sector in East Africa region. The project has been implemented for the past 4 years in Ethiopia, Kenya and Tanzania. The State Minister of Labor and Skills, Dr. Tashale Bericha, said $150 million is allotted and implemented in Ethiopia.
This project aimed at enabling anyone trained in Ethiopia to work anywhere in the continent. In East Africa, countries use their own curriculum. Ethiopia has its own curriculum. Kenya, Tanzania and others as well have their own curriculum. Thus, the project will help countries to apply similar curriculum so as to strengthen the labor mobility among countries.
According to the State Minister, the project is being implemented in 7 technical and vocational excellence centers in the country. It is stated that textile industry, railway transport, hotel and tourism industry and agriculture processing are among prioritized sectors by the project.
ከተመደበው $150 million ውስጥ ከ75 እስከ 80% ለግንባታ
From $150 million allotted, 75 to 80% of the finance is used for project building, equipment and machinery buying. Therefore, all institutions are being built by now. This will enhance the infrastructure facility of buildings. As you know, technical and vocational training needs practical training. So, the materials that will be bought by the project will enhance the facility of technical and vocational colleges.
Deputy Chief Secretary of East African Universities Common Council, Professor Andris Rai, said the project is working to produce competent citizens in East Africa region. East Africa Skills for Transformation and Regional Integration has a tremendous role for exchanging best practices among countries in the region.
The idea is that we learn from each other, that different implementing institutions can learn from other institutions. So the implementation phases are ranging, depending on different countries, different institutions. Some of them are doing very well, some of them are not doing very well, but overall, the implementation status is not bad. I think largely we are on track.
On the occasion, a representative of World Bank, Ziyu Hanling, on her part said the World Bank will continue supporting to make human resource development competent and efficient in East Africa region.
We financier and facilitator, we try to bring the best technical advice also to the countries and to the colleges. Ultimately, we hope good practices from ESTRIP, including how we work with industries, how we work with fellow institutions and fellow countries. How do we generate better skills and better employment outcomes for our graduates? Ultimately, we hope these good practices will spread across the continent and will help our young people in Ethiopia, in Tanzania, in Kenya to get good jobs and to have a productive life.
It is stated that the project is being implemented with $300 million budget. World Bank and East African Universities Common Council are coordinating the project so as to enhance technical and vocational training accessible in East Africa.
The 2023 African Continental Free Trade Area Business Reform is currently taking place at the Cape Town International Convention Center, South Africa, under the theme Acceleration of Implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Ababa Burhani reports.
Convened by the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat under the patronage of President Cyril Ramaphosa, the conference is scheduled to take place from 16 to 18 April 2023. A statement released by the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat notes the key objectives of the event are to create awareness of the current trade and investment opportunities in the area among Africa's business community and connect business to funding opportunities for African Continental Free Trade Area value chains. The forums also aims at establishing a private sector engagement platform for continued consultation on private sector needs in the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area and to promote a private sector friendly environment, especially for small, micro and medium enterprises led by women and youth to unlock more accessible and affordable trade finance opportunities. Attracting broad participation of the Africa's private sector, strategic investors, financial institutions, investment promotion agencies, business councils, chamber of commerce, multinational corporations, African women and youth business organizations, as well as heads of states and government and African Continental Free Trade Area partners are also the objectives of the forum. The African Continental Free Trade Area Secretary General Wamkele Mene has called on Africa's business community to partner with the Secretariat in order to ensure a successful implementation of the agreement. He said, creating an integrated One Africa market hangs upon effective private sector participation in the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. It is therefore critical that Africa's private sector, as one of the key drivers, takes a keen and active interest, supports and fully participates in African Continental Free Trade Area's programs. The idea is that they come together to find solutions aimed at boosting intra-Africa trade, creating opportunities, innovation and, of course, taking advantage of this expanded market under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Many added, it is only with the business community's full involvement that Africa will achieve its goal of enhancing intra-Africa trade, raise Africa's trading position on the global market, and accelerate economic growth, industrialization, production, and job creation. The African Continental Free Trade Area Business Forum is aimed at giving momentum and accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. While the conference will cover various pertinent trade issues, it will put a spotlight on agro-processing, automotive, pharmaceuticals, transportation and logistics, and digital trade and payments. The forum takes place after the Guided Trade Initiative, where countries have already started trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area, which makes this the ideal time to take advantage of the opportunity to promote business and investment in Africa.
You're watching Amhara Media Corporation English Service, and now let's proceed to news beyond borders. After a sleepless night as fighting raged, Khartoum residents are cautiously venturing out to buy supplies amid fighting between Sudan's army and paramilitaries. Many in Sudan were shaken awake by the outbreak of deadly fighting between Sudan's army and the powerful paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF). Families spent the day sheltered in place, too scared to move, but on Sunday, with the fighting showing no signs of abating, some crept out onto the dangerous streets seeking food. The violence erupted after weeks of bitter arguments between Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his deputy Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, who commands the heavily armed RSF. Their disagreements centered around the integration of the RSF into the regular army, a key condition for a final deal aimed at ending a crisis since 2021 military coup that they orchestrated together, as African News reported. G7 foreign ministers on Tuesday urged warring forces in Sudan to end hostilities immediately and return to negotiations after clashes that have killed almost 200 people. Weeks-long power struggle exploded into deadly violence between the forces of two generals who seized power in a 2021 coup, Sudanese Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his deputy Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, who commands the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The surge in violence forced the issue onto the agenda as the top G7 diplomats met in the Japanese town of Karuizawa for talks. They warned that the fighting threatens the security and safety of Sudanese civilians and undermines efforts to restore Sudan's democratic transition. The group urged a return to negotiations and called on all sides to take active steps to reduce tensions and ensure the safety of all civilians, including diplomatic and humanitarian personnel, as African News reported. G7 joins top diplomats from across 4 continents, urging rival armed factions to lay down arms amid fears of civil war, under Netanyahu presents Al Jazeera report.
At least 185 people have been killed and a further 1,800 injured in 3 days of fighting between rivals factions in Sudan, according to the United Nations Special Representative for Sudan. At the Group of 7 joint calls for an immediate end to hostilities. It is a very fluid situation, so it is very difficult to say where the balance is shifting to. Volker Perthes said on Monday of the violence between the army and paramilitary forces led by rival generals. The two sides are using tanks, artillery and other heavy weapons in densely populated areas. Fighter jets thundered overhead and anti-craft fire lit up the skies and darkness fell. Speaking to reporters in New York via video, Perthes also said that the warring sides were not giving the impression that they want mediation for peace between them right away. This sudden outbreak of violence over the weekend between the nation's two top generals, each backed by tens of thousands of heavily armed fighters, trapped millions of people in their homes or whenever they could find shelter, with supplies running low in many areas. The power struggle pits General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the commander of the armed forces, against General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, the head of the Rapid Support Forces, a parliamentary group. The former allies jointly orchestrated an October 2021 military coup. The violence has raised the specter of civil war, just as Sudanese were trying to revive the drive for a democratic civilian government after decades of military rule. The United Nations, the United States and others have called for a truce. On Monday, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres again called on the warring parties to immediately cease hostilities, warning that further escalation could be devastating for the country and the region. According to the State Department's principal deputy spokesperson, Vedant Patel, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is attending a Group of 7 meeting in Japan, spoke by phone with Burhan and Dagalo separately and underscored the urgency of reaching a ceasefire. In a joint statement on Tuesday, the G7 foreign ministers condemned the fighting. Al Jazeera James Baez, reporting from the United Nations, said various international players were being called on a ceasefire. The United Nations Security Council is also set to discuss the crisis.
This is Amhara Media Corporation English Service, and now it's time to take a look at the foreign exchange rate. That's all the news we have for today. I'm Gaila Damu. Thanks for watching and stay tuned with the rest of our programs.